The Raptors can't get it done against the Orlando Magic, losing the second game of the in-season tournament. 126-107 is your final. Welcome to Raptors Tonight. I'm Randy Urban, joined by Jack Armstrong, Sherman Hamilton, and Eric Smith. Guys, that was tough to watch, tough to play in probably if you're a Toronto Raptor. Jack, I'll start with you. Much of Orlando's offense just looked too easy for me. They scored 68 points in the paint to the Raptors' 36. What was going on with the Raptors' defense in that area?
Randy, Dwayne Casey, the former Raptor coach, used to use the word force all the time. And the first quarter to me was force. And I thought Orlando played with a lot more of it, and particularly as the quarter went along. They just instilled their will on the game. And, you mentioned the paint. I think it's everything. I think it's just the complete and total intensity that they played with. Like, just, what'd you hear as a kid all the time? Play hard, play smart, play together. That play hard stuff, people just, casually throw it around. But there's a difference when you do play at a different level. And in my opinion, you could talk about statistical element of X number of points in the paint, yada, yada, yada. They got to the paint because they wanted to get there. They wanted to get there more than the other guy. So to me, I think it came down to the fact that they just brought it. I don't know. I'm not being real specific, but I watched the game on television, and to me, that jumped off the page more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Eric, what kind of issues were you seeing from your vantage point?
I guess I would throw in a couple more words, Randy, and I would echo what Jack said if we want to say force, but I would also say, and I don't throw this around lightly, but I thought effort was lacking, especially in the early stages of the game. Intensity, will, desire. I mean, I could probably come up with a few more. The Raptors just seemed kind of flat-footed. They seemed a little sluggish. They didn't seem to be matching that intensity that I just spoke of. And I thought that Orlando was not only feeding off their own energy and the Raptors' lack thereof, but I thought they were also feeding off what was being provided by Jalen Suggs early on. There were a lot of guys that we could point to. Banchero got off to a decent start. There were others, but I thought Jalen Suggs, really even from before the ball even went up, he seemed jacked up and juiced up for this game. And I've got to assume, I could be wrong on this, but I've got to assume this is a personal thing with the Toronto Raptors going back to his draft year and all the chatter about whether the Raptors were going after Suggs or going after Barnes. They opted to pass on Suggs and went with Scotty, because the whole game, guys, Jalen Suggs was mean mugging for the camera, for the crowd, to his teammates. Anytime he touched the ball, let alone scored the ball or made any kind of play, he was letting the Raptors know that I'm controlling things right now and I'm beating you with my intensity. And the Raptors never matched it all night.
Sherm, if you're a fan, you're seeing this kind of lack of energy, and it's becoming a bit of a frustrating pattern for fans, I think, because you know that the team has it in them. They've seen it. So if you're the coach, how do you help develop that killer instinct, or can you?
Well, the $1 million question, as all of you know, is how do coaches find consistency, high level of consistency from their players every single game? And for the Raptors, I mean, you see the game they played against Boston right there at the end, having a chance to win it. Then they blow the doors off of Detroit. You expect that to happen, so it made sense. Tonight, you expected a different, at least, approach to the game to give them a chance to win on the road. Road games are difficult, and this Orlando Magic team, it's not a pushover team. I mean, it took them 28-plus games to get to 8 wins last year. They were there tonight against the Raptors. So they're a better team, and they play with an intensity. And, it's one of those things where you try to preach it as a coach, but unless the players can go out there and execute it because they feel it and they understand what it is, it becomes a difficult thing to translate from a chalkboard to the floor. And the Raptors struggle with that tonight. And that's where you got to tip your hat to Jamal Mosley, the head coach of the Orlando Magic. He's got these young guys playing hard and believing that defense is the way to go. And they've bought in, and they're doing a great job of that. And Eric, you mentioned Jalen Suggs. Well, the conversation, look, this day I'd still pick Scotty Barnes over Jalen Suggs if the draft was done today, because Scotty Barnes to me is a better player. However, what Jalen Suggs has is what we saw tonight, that leadership, that toughness, that ability at the point of attack to be an impact player. And it really has fed into what Jamal Mosley's been able to pull out of this team because of a leader like Jalen Suggs.
Yeah, and Jack, so defensively, what was Orlando doing to sort of stifle the Raptors offense? Obviously, they're playing hard and causing some turnovers on the Raptors' part, but what else were you seeing?
I was seeing a team that was really doing a good job being into the ball, getting back in transition, limiting transition points. I thought their offensive efficiency was pretty good. Early on, particularly taking care of the ball. Their shot selection was good. Anytime your offense is pretty good, your defense is going to look pretty good because for the Raptors, they're a lethal, explosive transition team. And when you can keep them in the half court, it's pretty good. I thought the Raptors were very effective, particularly Pascal Siakam, getting the ball into the paint and really doing a good job early on, establishing there and running offense through there. Jakob Poeltl was really good early in the game as well. A lot of interior opportunities for him on the roll. But nonetheless, I just thought they brought physicality, got better and better as they went along, packing the paint and making the Raptors more of a jump shooting team.
Yeah. Eric, on a positive note, sort of, the Raptors were finding Pascal early on. He was getting the ball in some mismatches in the post. And then I don't feel like I saw it much after the first quarter. Why do you think that was? And do you think that this is something they should, try to exploit more often?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, Randy. I think it is something that they can try and exploit a little bit, especially with Pascal having had his issues for the better part of a couple of weeks now, if not all season, from the perimeter. I think trying to make him more of a post scorer and more of a paint scorer is certainly a good thing. And I think it just comes down to the recognition, perhaps, and the awareness on the floor. And I think when the Raptors fall down big, and I don't know if this is just a product of any team, when you're down big and it becomes kind of mano a mano, you're trying to do it yourself. And I think that whether it was Schroeder, whether it was Scotty Barnes, I think it was a lot of guys just forcing the issue instead of maybe calming things down and looking for those higher percentage looks or those better mismatches. To your point, Randy, early in the game, a couple of times, if not 3 times, the mismatches that the Raptors found with Pascal down in the post against Anthony Black, I mean, that was something that you could expose time and time again. And I think Pascal's got more talent, especially down low with his ability with the spin moves and his craftiness and herky-jerky around the rim than a lot of the Magic players. But it's something that they didn't go to enough. And I would look at what Jack was talking about with the turnovers. Not that I'm disagreeing with Jacko. I think that no doubt Orlando's defense kind of cranked it up. But I think the Raptors just had so many unforced turnovers tonight and were just so sloppy with the ball overall that, again, I think a lot of that was guys trying to do too much, taking it on themselves instead of trying to calm things down a bit, slow the pace a bit instead of playing so frenetically and frantically.
Right. Okay, let's leave the game for a little bit. It was a bit depressing to watch, I'm sure. Former player and NBA champion Steven Jackson recently said, quote, "I would rather have a championship ring and 50 million rather than 100 million without a ring." Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
I don't think I need a ring if I have that kind of money. That's what I personally think. But I would say this: if you're playing in the NBA, 50 million, 100 million, you're still good. Get that ring. That ring is tough to get. So if you have your money, yeah, I'll take less money and take that ring, because on that 50 million, I can make another 50.
Yeah, but 50 million is like, half to the government, 15% to your agent. You probably got a couple of friends along the way.
Hey, you put it in a pot and cook it up, you can make some money off of that.
Jack, what are you taking on that one?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I will say
help a
this,
lot of people with double the money.
Well, I'll say this too. I think we have way too much of an obsession with the ring. There's a lot of great athletes, and there's a lot of great teams that have given their heart, their soul, everything they have within them to win, and they came up short. So if I were one of those guys that did all the things I just said, I'll take the extra 50 million.
Yeah. Eric, where are you going with this?
If I got to break the vote here, you haven't voted yet, Randy. So maybe I'm not breaking the vote. I'd take the 50 million and the ring. I'm with Sherman on this one. I think that, yes, I know, Randy, you're right. It's technically half, but all right. So then it's now the conversation's 50 versus 25. Either way, I'm taking the money in the ring. You play the game to win championships, or at least to have a chance to win one. I'm not taking away anything from Charles Barkley or John Stockton or anybody else that never won a ring, Patrick Ewing, and the list goes on. I would assume, I shouldn't say guarantee, I would assume any number of those guys, if they could go back in time and say, would you like a title? Would you prefer to have a ring, even if it meant sacrificing a couple of million or tens of millions? I think each and every one of those guys would like that ring. So I'll take the ring and the 50.
Yeah, it's tough. I think I agree with all of you in all different ways, but I think I'm with Jack. I think that there's a lot of great players. As much as winning a ring would be an invaluable experience, and you'd probably never forget that, there's a few other things that.
Who's going to be the tiebreaker now, though? Who's going to break the tie? It's 2-2. Come on,
Christian. Christian.
We'll let
your brother Christian.
Chris says ring for sure. He's a ring guy.
Right.
No, he says take the money. All right, real quick, guys. We got about a minute left. What's the biggest thing they need to do tomorrow night against Indiana? Sherman, I'll start with you.
Oh, you're running into an offensive juggernaut in the Indiana Pacers. They're in a shootout right now, I think, with Atlanta. You've got to play defense. You can't just rely on your offense to outgun a team like Indiana. You're going to have to figure out a way to protect your paint and be much more responsible on the defensive end of the floor. And don't cough the ball up.
Right. Jack, real quick, we got 10 seconds.
I'm watching them against Atlanta. They don't guard anybody. I mean, it depends on which team wants to show up. If you show up and play both offense and defense, you'll win.
The bench, Eric, Randy, the bench has got to do something. The bench needs to step up, period.
Love it. Great stuff, guys. Next game for the Raptors is Wednesday against the Indiana Pacers. Tip-off goes at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget, Raptors Tonight will go live on YouTube shortly after the final buzzer. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.